Hello.
Yeah.
That's the old Iowa hello.
Today's episode is made possible by our therapy partners, Sturdy B, Myra, and Pickets from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. This is Pod Therapy, real people, real problems, and real therapists. Submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. It's the start of season 7.
Oh, God damn it.
And now broadcasting the churn. That's Dr. Jim. That's Whitney. I'm Nick. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Wow. Here we are.
Season 7.
7.
Say it, Jacob.
I
Season
forgot all about
7.
this. Can you believe it's already season 7?
Jacob can't stand it.
That's so stupid. No. You're on this train. It's too late.
Oh my
Been
gosh.
part of it since season 1.
Yeah.
So.
I have a pop culture
Ooh.
topic super quick before we jump into it.
Oh,
What are y'all's
all right.
thoughts on the whole Gypsy Rose Blanchard stuff? Do y'all know who that is?
No.
Oh my god!
I know the headlines, and I know
No clue.
the top level stuff.
Oh my gosh! I've before she was just released from prison.
It's the Munchausen syndrome.
Munchausen's by proxy. Yes, her mom had it. Mhm.
I have no idea what you're talking
Okay. Do you know Munchausen's?
Do you know what that is?
What is your degree in again?
about. Isn't this some kind of pastry?
Exactly this.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's a meat dish.
Oh, by the way, the top,
Like
Like,
minced pie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
the top wide receiver from Liberty University's football team just transferred to LSU.
Oh.
Yeah,
You're
so
welcome.
we've got a
It's
flame.
going to bring Jesus to your campus.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. The flames.
We got a flame on our team.
Flaming Christian over there. It's
Yeah.
definitely exciting.
No, this poor girl, she was raised by her mom and who had Munchausen by proxy and basically made her sick and lied to everyone, took charity money. I don't know if it was Habitat Against Humanity or someone who built her.
Against Humanity.
Yeah, whatever.
You're doing great.
Who built her like a whole house. That
The less popular
I'm like-
charity wing.
Yes.
It's like those pro-AIDS
Against.
charities.
Yeah, we're just
Habitat
polluting.
Against Humanity.
Catholic
Burning
Church.
down suburbs.
They're just hosting bug parties.
Habitat for Humanity built this whole house for her and her mom, and it's like her mom just took all this money, and she was left thinking when she was growing up that she had like cancer.
The daughter.
Oh my
The daughter,
God.
yeah. Like her whole life that she had cancer, like leukemia, that she
Oh,
had muscular dystrophy.
Because the
that
mom was using her to raise funds.
And
oh my gosh.
for a while she's from Slidell originally.
Louisiana.
Yeah. And when Katrina
They're crazy people in Slidell.
Yeah. Well, when Katrina hit, she used that to her advantage and said all her medical records are gone. So when she'd switch doctors, it was like, well, you're telling me she has A, B, C, D diagnosis, where her medical records, she's like, oh, well, we're victims of Katrina
Oh
and
my gosh.
Hurricane Katrina, and all
Oh
her
my
records were
goodness, this
destroyed.
woman's
Our doctor didn't own a
monster.
computer.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Internet didn't exist
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Internet
yeah.
in 2005 just didn't exist.
Yeah.
I know. I think she's 30. Wait, she was born in 92.
Oh my
Okay.
So-
gosh.
32.
The daughter.
The daughter is
Okay.
born in 92. So eventually when
The daughter is named Gypsy, or the mother
the daughter's
is named Gypsy?
Gypsy, Dee Dee is the mom.
Okay.
And when Gypsy...
I think we got to call them by name. I don't think we can use
Okay,
she
yeah.
and she pronouns.
She and she.
It's too confusing.
Yeah, so Gypsy, the daughter, when she got older, the mom was even lying about her age at one point. And I think that might have been when they moved from Slidell to Missouri.
Okay.
And started fresh. And again, all the records are vanished, and there's no one else to affirm how old Gypsy, the daughter, is.
Slidell is an area, like there's a town there, but there is rural. There is rural outside of the town of Slidell that's still technically Slidell. So like you can live in Slidell and not see another person.
Oh my goodness.
That's a possibility there.
this
I'm
was
like
plausible.
you're out in the boonies there.
Yeah. So yeah, basically what ended up happening was the reason Gypsy, the daughter, ended up in prison, because the mom isn't in prison, it's the daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the part I was confused. Okay.
Because
okay.
she met someone online when she got old. She was in her early 20s. I think she was 20 or 21.
Okay.
She started trying to sneak out of the bedroom because her mom made her sleep in bed with her and everything. Gypsy made Gypsy sleep in bed with her. So
Dee Dee made Gypsy sleep in bed with her. Okay.
So when Gypsy would sneak out at night, she would get on the computer, the internet, and like Facebook and stuff. She started talking to a guy, and basically was like, her mom by then had started physically abusing her too, because I think Gypsy was rebelling and pushing back. And so Gypsy...
So now she's adding a bit of like Kathy Bates misery type
yeah,
thing
it
too.
is. Yeah. It's misery, it's mommy dearest, it's all of it mixed into one.
Wow.
And convinced this guy to come...
It's weirdly not the Broadway musical Gypsy, though. No, it doesn't really have anything to do with that.
Not really similar.
There's not really much stripping on stage going on. Too little, if you ask me.
Well, I'll let you know when the musical comes out
Thank
for
you.
this girl.
Gypsy 2. The Reckoning.
So Gypsy convinces this guy that she met online and likes to come kill her mom.
Oh my gosh.
And so he does.
Jeez.
So he's in jail for life, and she spent 8
Until
years.
just now, I thought the person who was in jail was the mother.
Nope. She's
for
dead.
abusing her child.
That's why it's conflicting, and that's why I brought it up, because it's very interesting. Like Gypsy has gotten out of jail now.
Yeah.
And she has like millions of followers. Everyone's obsessed with this on social media, and there are people out there saying, well, she is a criminal and we're glorifying this person who committed a crime.
Wow.
But she's also
Not wrong,
a
by the
victim. Not.
Also not wrong.
But her whole childhood. I mean, this mom had dentists remove teeth. She had a feeding tube because she told doctors that the mom told doctors that Gypsy couldn't eat.
Oh, what I
like
wouldn't give
had
for
a phobia
feeding tube.
of eating.
That'd be great.
You do have a feeding tube at your mouth.
You could use the second one.
Yeah.
Just imagine how many more
time?
podcasts I could record if I didn't have to use my mouth for eating.
I need multiple feeding tubes.
So yeah, it's an interesting case because obviously murder is not good.
No.
But at what level is it? Almost like
Goodness
self-defense.
gracious.
I don't know. It's interesting, and
Our
the
heart
whole
should be broken for the dude, obviously, because this guy just wanted love. you
Oh,
know?
okay. We're not
He
going to
was
go
willing
there.
to do anything.
Yeah. Actually, he is the one that I want to talk to.
I was like,
I'll
yeah.
kill your mom.
I know. You don't see it.
He's really a hero.
You don't see a lot of Munchausen by proxy just
No.
out there like that.
Yeah.
And that severe of a
But
case.
that's a degree. Like that's hardcore.
I always wonder when it started, when Gypsy was born in the 90s, maybe the mom wasn't thinking that the internet will exist or technology will advance. But like, what's your plan long term? You're just like, would she have eventually killed her daughter? The mom?
Oh my
like,
God.
I don't know.
I mean, it seems like she probably would have just accidentally.
that's how I
Yeah.
feel. Like, give overdose.
Well, that's the last move is the GoFundMe for the funeral.
Right.
Because you got to get those last pennies. So.
Oh yeah.
The
Get
mom's gonna
the
get
attention.
that last money
Yeah.
then.
Mm-hmm. It's all about attention. So.
Oh God, a friend of mine. This is the main show. Now we're just digressing and
I've
digressing.
deleted all the questions. Go ahead.
But a friend of mine is dealing with that now. A member of her like extended family, kind of a distant member of her family. I'm not going to give details on this, but a small child is dead and another small child is very injured. And the concern in the rest of the family is, and like a family friend / babysitter committed the injuries.
Oh, no.
And the rest of the family is now concerned that the mother was in on it
Oh shit.
Oh,
for insurance and GoFundMe money.
holy shit.
So now, and the police are taking it, I guess, somewhat seriously because I guess there have been enough cases now of basically GoFundMe fraud.
Wow.
Like someone dying or something of that nature and
Yeah.
someone using that as an excuse to fundraise on
man.
that.
That's
I'm like, oh, this is just heartbreaking.
so screwed up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ugh.
Well, season 7's off to a great start.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Exciting stuff. Welcome, everybody, to the next year, the next installment of Pod Therapy. As we started in the Patreon, it's going to
That's
be
our
a
new
dark
theme
year.
music.
Yeah. It's going to be a very dark year.
Dark
Tansman
Nick.
decided to start off with a very dark comedy Patreon, and we're just going to do that here, too. So
Yeah.
just going to start off dark. First
Hey,
question.
remember when you guys were going to record a new theme song for this
Nope.
new
Yeah,
year?
what happened
That's
with
gone.
that?
Yeah,
We gave up on that.
We, it's still.
All I have to
still
do
in
is
the
I'm
works.
just going to
Sandbag
do it
long
with the
enough.
kazoo, aren't I?
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
Well, that would be the fastest solution. Yeah.
I'll just do it
a
today.
cappella.
Yeah.
That'd be that'd be really fun if we just a cappella'd the entire theme song. That'd be really funny. That just became the new
No,
theme.
no. We got a rockapella.
Oh, yeah.
Look up, for everybody who doesn't know, look up
Rockapella.
Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego
Yes.
live TV show Rockapella.
Yes. And we all get the rat tails.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you do it. Are social workers better than therapists? From Sarah Smith, a therapist producer.
I think I know her.
I think so.
Strange relations. Do licensed clinical social workers really think they do therapy better? A harsh.
Why do you put the accent on workers? Licensed clinical social workers.
My bad.
You
A
sound
harsh-
Work harder.
No, you sound like what's
Like
his
sex
name?
workers?
No, you sound like Christopher Walken.
Worker.
The social workers,
workers.
are much better at
The
this
weekend.
than the regular therapists.
Yeah, you're
The
probably
shoulder
right.
shrugs there too.
You're talking to my guy all wrong. A harsh, abrupt question, but as I practice and learn as a student, I'm noticing yet another sort of divide in mental health counseling, and that has to do with the differences in approach towards therapy and clients between LCSWs and LMCH, or whatever acronym equivalent. From what I understand, LCSWs focus from a more macro systems level, while licensed mental health counselors and such focus on the individual level. I know it's more nuanced than that. I'm just trying to keep my words as simple as possible. I'm situated currently in community mental health, and there are a whole lot of opinions on the best way to do things. And I find myself getting overwhelmed whenever I consult and get two very different responses. But I've particularly noticed some shaky ground between the mental health counselors and the clinical social workers. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, fight. Sarah Smith.
Yeah.
Let's go.
To the
Whitney,
death.
why do you think you're better than everybody? Let's go. That's obviously what the question
It's obviously what it is. I like this question because I noticed this too.
is. Do you really?
Yes.
I don't think I picked up on this.
Oh, it's yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb. It's a pretty social worky thing
it?
from my perspective.
Okay.
That most people I know who are clinical social workers, licensed clinical social workers, or even if they're not, I guess that level, just, BSW or whatever.
Bachelor social work.
Yes. They see themselves as, how to word this, less fighty. Not more qualified, but more experienced.
Really?
Like, look, we've learned about all these macro level issues. And when we meet with a client, we're looking at the big picture rather than just the person in front of us. That is the perception from the social worker
I've never
side.
picked up on that. Is it because social work often the bachelor's is in social work? And that maybe it's like you've been doing your
so.
discipline for like 7 years? Like,
I
So-
think, yeah. What do you
Oh,
think,
go ahead.
Nick?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't-
My last thing I was going to say is it's kind of a weird thing to say because in my master's level program for social work, you could split and it was like macro or direct practice.
Okay.
So to me, I'm like, I took 1 or 2 macro classes, but I mean, I went direct practice, so I don't know how different my education was than
Right.
someone who's like LMFT or whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know exactly. I guess I've never asked.
That's so
but
interesting.
yeah.
Huh, I didn't
So-
know that.
Oh, this was so. Here's the thing. I think you're probably unaware of it because you've been in Nevada the whole time.
Yeah.
This is a bigger deal in other states.
Okay.
I think than what it is in Nevada. But this was a huge fight in Iowa,
Really?
and it was brought to my attention not by a social worker, but it was the mental health counselors.
Okay.
So I kind of walked into it just completely oblivious, not knowing anything about
You
this
got jumped
rift.
in a dark alley by
Yeah.
all the other therapists?
And then it was actually mental health counselors who were like, "Oh, you're a social worker." And then there was a lot of frustration or a lot of
Really?
like kind of like what's the word I'm looking for?
Tension?
Yeah, tension in
Okay.
that, in the way that they said that.
When you're a shrink all the way.
That's the theme song.
Yeah. And so like that's kind of how I picked up on it. And then I'm like, well, what the fuck is your problem?
Yeah,
What
why
is
is
your
this
It's
an
a rip off
issue?
of West Side Story.
Yeah,
Would be
no,
great.
it's the Jets. And so I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. And I think part of it has to do with what a social worker can do versus what an LMHC
That's the
can
jealousy
do.
I've always had. Is
So
like
that's-
I
LCSWs
forgot
have the
about that,
broadest
yeah.
scope. They
Yeah.
were the first, like the two disciplines. Well, psychiatry, putting it in its own box for a second because they're medical. but like clinical psychologists and social workers as the two elder disciplines, the clinical psych being first and social workers being second, they're licensed everywhere. So you can work for the Department of Defense, you can work for the VA, you could take Medicare, and like for the longest, it's only recently, like this last year, that barrier has started to open up where other disciplines can take all these. So all I ever knew of the social worker like divide was envy. It was like, oh man, those damn social workers, they're so lucky. And like in Nevada, one of the things that our state, I think, does really well that other states don't do as well is having a specific licensure for substance abuse counseling. And we do really well with that. We take it very seriously. A lot of other states don't do it as
Really
seriously.
seems like that should just be standard.
It really should.
A lot of states do that.
Okay. Well, I guess California. I think of California, it's like it's not
California. Yeah, that's not a good example. But like,
I look at that, right?
I mean, most other states have.
You're right.
A
Arizona does a pretty
certification
good job with it,
or some sort of.
But I remember coming up and I was like earning 2 licenses. I was, the CPC and also the LCADC. And I remember being so envious of students that were LCSW because from day one, their scope included everything. And it was like, but they don't have any better training than me. Like, I'm busting my ass. And like the day they graduate, they get the full scope. They get 2 licenses worth of scope and they can work for the federal government. I can't do that. And I've had to prove myself much more. So I've always been envious, but I never knew there was like a stigma of like, who's better.
I forgot too that when I was doing my supervision hours that there was a MFT doing their training hours too there.
Marriage and family therapist.
And she said she couldn't do groups, I think, like, which I'm like, I don't really know, but it was something like that. It's like, well, no, I can only see individuals. So then if you're going to work somewhere, people want to use you to like, we want to bill for everything, especially if it's Medicaid.
You know what's interesting in Nevada? This is one, and you're absolutely right, Nick, that a big part of why I don't see it is because I've just always practiced in Nevada. But ironically here, LCSWs are often disadvantaged in the marketplace. Like they have all the advantages for when they're fully licensed, touching Medicare, touching DOD, Department of Defense, touching VA. They end up with a lot of power when they get fully licensed. But getting fully licensed as an LCSW is a bitch and a half because they cannot get into private practice. Their board, at least in Nevada, only allows them to accrue their hours at board-approved sites, whereas all the other boards do not do that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So like MFTs, CPCs, and licensed psychologists, we all, if we want to, get into private practice during intern years.
Oh, wow.
Build our own practices.
Wow.
Or like join like thriving practices and get into it. LCSWs tend in Nevada to get more experiences in agencies. So they tend
Texas,
to work
it's
in
like
nonprofit, in government, substance abuse sometimes,
Agencies,
foster care. So they don't tend to get like into that lane where they compete in the private practice model until they're fully licensed. And by that point, like they've never touched it. And so like a lot of them are like, well, I'm already doing well in my career working for this company.
Yes.
So I think of LCSWs more as company therapists.
Yeah.
So there's a whole history here. But once you kind of understand a little bit about like the history of social work, this all makes more sense. Because like you kind of talked about, like we've got psychiatry.
Right.
Then you have psychology. Well, the very next thing to come was social work.
Yes.
And that existed before licensed mental health counselors, marriage and family therapy, all of that stuff. It was social workers who kind of came up next. And social workers differed from psychologists in the sense that social workers really looked at, as Sarah pointed out, kind of the whole macro component. So it wasn't just looking at, okay, this individual has mental health issues going on. It's, well, what systemically is happening in society?
Right.
Like, what is this person's life like that's causing this or contributing to it or creating limitations and obstacles in their life? So we're looking at, and so social work from the very beginning was very involved in government, was very involved in system change,
Right.
And so that was like community organizing. That basically social work kind of came out of that.
I wonder with social work, and to either of you, because obviously you both studied this, was it a response historically to like the curriculum of clinical psychologists that were very disease oriented and pathology oriented?
Not necessarily. I don't think so. At least that's not the impression that I got. I think it just kind of happened it kind of came, it met psychology, but it came from the other direction.
Okay.
So instead of starting where psychology was and branching off, it started out as community change.
Okay, got it.
And then it slowly worked into psychology.
Interesting.
So, this goes back to, and I forget all of these famous social workers' names, but, the ones that like in Chicago, the south side of Chicago, talking about like, the meat packing plants and everything that was going on there and the working conditions and getting involved there and like community organizing and, these poor communities being able to, because they're not getting any assistance from local governments or from the police or from municipalities, them getting organized and starting to take care of their own. And it was all social workers that were getting involved in creating all of this change.
So social work was trying to attack mental health from, you guys keep using the word macro, like ecosystem level perspective.
Yes, but not even really mental health. It kind of started that way, and then it kind of like, it slowly moved into mental health.
Okay.
And then so we started looking at like, treating individuals, and then we get closer to psychology, right? So here's why this is important, is because I had a former supervisor say something, probably one of the stupidest things any supervisor's ever said to me. He was a mental health counselor. And so he had a lot of frustration. He was very envious of the field of
There's
social
a lot
work.
of penis envy.
And so one
Look
of the
at
things,
Whitney's penis.
very
Amazing.
one of the things that he had
Macro
said,
level.
one of the things they had said to me is like, well, social workers, they just have all
Whitney,
these.
take that off the table.
Can't. It won't fit under. Okay.
They have, we're talking about scope, and he's like, well, they can just do all that. The only reason they can do all that stuff is because they advocated for it.
Oh, like yeah, got the licenses built in. Yeah,
I'm quiet because I'm waiting for your point.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the catch?
What? So
Yeah.
you want more rights? You want a larger scope?
go get
Go
them.
fucking advocate for it.
Yeah.
Like that's not my problem,
Yeah.
But the point he made,
I mean, you could say that
was,
about like women.
yeah.
The only reason you have the rights that you have is because you advocated for them.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
But-
that is
How dare
scope
you.
works.
But the important thing behind that message, the thing that he was right about, was that because social workers already had that skill set.
Right.
Yeah.
They were already involved in that. So when it
knew how to
came
do
to working with individuals and providing mental health, oh shit, we've got this training that we can use. Well, let's write that within our scope, and let's make sure that we're licensed, and let's get involved. So they used all of those skills and those techniques to create that.
Well, and also in many, like I think for me, when I think, so I'm definitely on the mental health counselor side of that ledger. And when I think of how I feel about social workers, I've always looked at it as the elder profession. So I think of it as like the first of the master level professions to like lay that groundwork and really pave the road. But they were very much a hybrid kind of concept, right? Because like you were saying, they didn't start from this incubus of, we're here to do this. We're here to do mental health pathology treatment. It was bigger than that, and it kind of became a subsection of the larger pantheon of all that social work does. And that is clinical social work, right? And so like for me, I think besides being envious of it, I've always had mixed feelings because like, all the social workers I've had the privilege of knowing in my career have always been highly qualified. So I don't know that I've ever stumbled upon a bunch that I'm like, you're a joke. Like, you don't know what you're doing. They all seem very good. And so, but I could see situations where I could be pissy about it because like I studied marriage and family therapy, and that discipline presented itself as we were born to treat the mental health of families, and like this is how this whole thing originated here. This is the discipline. Here's how we see problems. Systemic, right? Small like S, systemic, not macro, but not exactly micro, not individual either, right? So like I've appreciated that other disciplines begin and end with the treatment of mental illness, whereas I can see the frustration of sometimes knowing a discipline that has the strongest powers but the least exclusive training for mental health pathology. That they start very broad and then they winnow their way in. I can see that being frustrating if the other discipline is like, my bread and butter every day for 3 years was treating mental health pathology, and I have the smallest scope of any of the other disciplines. I get that that's frustrating. But you know what's interesting? I actually been obsessed over this last year with who are the best therapists. And like I went on this huge deep dive. I haven't done anything with Patreon with it. It's just been a private project of like who actually are the best therapists. And you could answer that question from a variety of angles. Is it men versus women therapists? Is it an age thing? Are the veteran therapist the best? Is the young therapist? Is it a discipline? Are the psychologists the best? Or, whichever discipline is. And what's fascinating is when you really comb through all the data, there is no answer to that. There is no discipline that is statistically better. That includes clinical psychologists and psychiatry. There is no discipline, or there is no gender or age or even experience level that determines what the best therapists are. The best therapists are the ones who have this set of skills that some refer to as the 8 great traits, but they are a set of interpersonal and therapeutic skills that make all outcomes better. And so whether you're using CBT or psychoanalysis, it doesn't really matter. We can give a great therapist any particular suite of ideas, any training in any school, and if they have those 8 traits in their work, they will be the best therapist in the world. Yeah. And it's really, to me, that's very validating. And I think it really answers, Sarah's question of like, are they better? Well, no, and neither am I. Like the best therapists do not come from a school. The best therapists do not come from a profession or a discipline. The best therapists do not come from a particular theoretical orientation. The best therapists have mastered 8 zones of skills better than others and use those. And so to the extent that they gained those in their career, or they come from their personal history, or they learned it in mentorship, or they learned it from a great professor, if they have those skills, they will be the best therapists.
And I think as the profession evolved, so did the education. Right. So like what Sarah's talking about as far as social workers having a more macro level approach, to some degree that's true, but it's not to the same degree that it had been true in the past. So like, I don't know if your program was the same as mine, but the first year of the program was more macro focused. The second year we had to pick a track, right? Yeah. So you had to go into clinical, or you had to go into social administration. Yeah. And so I did the social administration route, which for any of you out there that are in school or going to be working on your master's and are thinking about it, don't fucking do that. Go clinical. Yeah. Because you can always learn the administrative. Yeah. Yes. If you're a good clinician, you're going to become an administrator anyway.
Yeah. They're going to give you the job. Yeah. They're going to be like, oh, but this guy has a resume. They're not going to, in fact, they're going to pick you over the other person because in a pinch, you're still clinical. Yeah. You can sign all the notes. Yeah. You can be the executive and clinical director. Yeah. They're great with it.
That's what one of my professors in grad school said, something to the effect of, within 2 years of you graduating, you'll be in a supervisor position somewhere. Like, I was like, really? Now I'm like, yep.
Anytime I talk to potential students that are like, what graduate program should I pick? I always tell them social work.
I do too, just because it's marketable.
I think it's better for your overall career. Yeah. But I mean, the question of like, will I get as much drilled in clinical mental health training?
So here's the thing.
I don't know. I guess I just never looked at your curriculum.
So the second point that I was going to make, and this, I kind of want to toss it to you next and see if your program was like this as well.
Are you ready
it's worthy your point. But that's fine.
So the first year, I'm trying to remember all the classes that we had, but there was definitely more macro focused. Like we learned about, systems, and we learned about, like a whole world.
It is like ecosystems. It's like how government affects smaller communities versus states versus counties versus cities. Like all of it.
We learned all about that stuff. And so I can see the argument of somebody who is getting their master's in mental health counseling that they don't do that in their first year, that maybe they go right into theory. Or they go right into something else. Yeah. So they get 2 years of that, whereas a MSW maybe only gets that in their second year. Yeah. That's a fine argument. I can absolutely see that. I don't see that necessarily as being advantageous because I think the part that you do get in that first year, I think is still very good. And definitely I'm biased. I'm a social worker, but I appreciate our profession. And as I've gotten older and kind of followed kind of the whole history of it. It's a very interesting history, starting off with Margaret Mead, who was the one I couldn't think of.
Margaret Mead, yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was huge. It had such a huge impact on society that I value that piece of it. I don't regret doing that. I would definitely go back and I'd get my MSW again, But I mean, did you get any kind of clinical or theory in your first year at all?
I guess not. When you mentioned that earlier, when I was thinking about this earlier, when I was taking macro level courses, you're right, it was that first year. I wasn't really thinking of it like that. But yeah, it was in that first year because I remember I had a professor who was working on the Innocence Project for the prison system.
Oh, yeah.
Which was so interesting.
That Kevin Spacey movie?
Yes.
I don't remember what it's called, but it was based on that.
Yeah, I can't think.
Super good movie.
That just really captivated me. I was like, wow, people really serve, 20, 30 years in prison for something they didn't do. I mean, it will fuck you up in the head when you start learning about that.
I knew a guy when I was young. I was probably mid-teens, early to mid-teens. And I knew this guy we had a mutual friend. And he was an older man, but he had been in prison for nearly 40 years. For something that he was completely exonerated from.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I mean 100%. Was not there when there was a violent crime and was not there.
Yeah, they'll even have alibis, and they still don't give a bit.
Yeah,
they're like,
Yep, they even got OJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sarah, I don't know. I mean, being in Nevada, I think that we do have a unique perspective because we're so scarce. We don't have a workforce.
No memory of what the actual question was.
Yeah, it's our LCSW's.
I know that it wasn't in my wheelhouse.
Our life
That's
coach
all I really
is
do.
better than
yeah. So here, I think because we are so scarce on professionals, we all just work together really well.
Yeah.
And everybody has to be good. I mean, you just have to work hard. You have to be really good at this. All the LCSWs I've known have always been really talented. I've never really, second guessed them. I could see myself living in a world where that little bit of, petty envy I had for LCSWs getting rewarded with the largest scope would annoy me if they were all the boss class. So if the LCSW class was always the leadership of every place I went, I could see myself starting to measure the education at that point and going, I did twice as much clinical mental health training. If we agree that any amount of clinical mental health training in graduate school is a prerequisite for what we do, me doing twice as much should matter. Why, just because you've gotten all the laws written 100 years before my profession showed up, do you get to be the best therapist in the room? And that would annoy me at some point if I lived in a culture where that was the case. But in Nevada, that's never been the culture.
Yeah.
And you don't see a lot of LCSWs in private practice. You're one of the rare ones, actually. I don't see a ton.
Really?
Is your building's all LCSWs though, right?
Yes, they are.
That's the problem is you guys stay together in these little gangs. Yeah.
And we run the streets at night.
Run the streets.
That's right.
Oh shit! It's the social workers.
Oh God, get down! They're going to reform the justice system. Anyway. Oh, sorry.
I don't ever sense too much tension in Nevada.
It's pretty chill.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
there's.
other states,
it's just the wider scope is the only thing that sets LCSWs apart. But other than that, nobody's really tense about it.
At the end of the day, I have met great therapists and bad therapists in every single discipline.
Yep.
I admire training, but also sometimes I don't care. I mean, you look at clinical psychologists.
How much
they're going to school for 5 to 7 years and they're writing a book, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you look at that and go, wow, you did a lot of extra work on research, but I don't think you're a better therapist than me. So it really comes down to, I think.
Most psychologists aren't really doing therapy anyway, it seems.
They are. I mean, my students are. They're doing it they're doing the same amount as the clinical mental health counseling students.
Are they doing it well?
They're great. Yeah, everybody's really great, except for those social workers. They're terrible. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about when self-reflection and mental health collide. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Mason Miller, Tess Miller, Myler T, Paris, Team Monaco, Oscar Squandros, and Hannah Marie. And if you want to sponsor the show, become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. All right. Our trivia theme this week, in honor of our therapy producers, is about Spice Girls.
True. Oh, speaking of which, I want to go. My wife can go too. Do you have any more tickets?
Oh,
shit.
Yeah.
Then I need 2.
How many you just want 2?
Yep.
All
I'd
right.
like to sit next to Nick and Laura.
I will.
I feel offended.
I'm going to send a text.
Yeah. I would
Seating
like.
is not guaranteed.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I'll sit wherever there are empty seats. That sounds good. Go on with your.
So anyway, we're all going to see Spice Wannabe.
Yes.
I'm not,
Vegas.
but you 3
People of the
are.
world.
You're not
Hell
going?
yeah.
No, I'm working that night.
That's
We'll
fine.
go.
Well, we're all going to go.
I've also
it's
seen
going to
it.
be awesome.
SJ will be
Yeah.
working.
All right. So, because I figured we're all doing that next weekend, let's do a little trivia.
Okay.
Melanie Chisholm was known in the group as which spice?
Buzz.
Oh, I have multiple choice, but okay.
Oh, I just know it.
Okay.
She also
I'm
just had
gonna-
a birthday, and my friend of mine was at her birthday party.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Whitney because
Because I said Buzz first.
yeah,
Yeah, because she buzzed in.
It's because she's a damn social worker and they wrote the laws.
That's
Yes.
right.
Is it Mel B or
Buzz.
oh?
It
is
is.
that your final answer?
No, she fucking answered. Her stage name is Mel C
Oh,
or
Mel
Sporty
C.
Spice.
Yes,
Oh, Mel C.
It is Sporty
Sporty
Spice.
Spice.
Okay.
You
And
are
they call her Mel C.
Mel
Yes.
C. Oh,
Okay.
Dang it.
Second question: who was the last Spice Girl to join the group?
Buzz.
Jesus.
Ginger Spice.
I thought.
No.
Oh, Buzz. Posh.
No.
Dang it.
Buzz. Baby Spice.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah,
well
fuck you
done.
guys.
Emma Bunton.
Emma, yeah.
I question that source. I don't know if that's correct.
Wow.
Based on what I've
How
seen.
dare
Yes,
you
insider-
Official
impugn-
declaration of
Are
shenanigans.
we declaring shenanigans?
Insider
All right.
information.
There's no official shenanigans this early in the year.
Okay. All right.
Not yet. Not yet.
The season, you mean?
First episode. Yeah. First
Yeah.
episode.
I'm not going to call it a fucking season.
All right.
Was that it?
Back to you, Jim.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Thanks. When self-reflection and mental health collide, this is what it's like when worlds collide.
Oh yeah, Mel C just had a big birthday party for herself.
Ooh.
Yeah, there was a whole thing. Like she even performed. She hadn't performed live
Is
in a long
Scary
time.
Spice Mel B?
Mel B is Scary Spice.
Dang
yeah.
it. That was, yeah. That's
I wasn't going to say it in case it was a future trivia
another
question.
one. Well, it might be. I'm
It
like,
is not.
Smart. You're
Okay.
playing the
Yeah.
long game.
yeah.
By Matthias Vanderbrandt. Hi, Pod Therapy guys and gal. Thank you for the show that has been my weekly listening for 3 years now.
I'm sorry. 3 seasons.
Yeah, correction noted. As for the question,
That's all the time we have for this show.
and the end of all the shows that we'll ever do. As for the question, I've started to recognize a troubling clash between my ability to reflect on my life and the techniques I was taught to combat cognitive distortions. For context, I've seen a therapist for over 5 years for issues with my self-image and related depressive symptoms. I also present with symptoms that fit a minor kind of bipolar disorder. That is how my therapist described it anyway. In practice, it's a day or two a month with a little mania and a day or two with a little depression. Not clinically distressing by itself and now pretty manageable, but not fun when it compounds with something else. The real issue here is that my low self-image caused me to get stuck in a negative thought spiral where a minor annoyance with myself would quickly start to pull everything I like or value into doubt. Depression is sneaky like that. At this point, I can recognize the start of such a spiral quite well and steer myself out of it. Even just the recognition of the cognitive distortion robs it of its power, to the point where I can push through with little effort. However, I now notice that I can't be left with my own thoughts without starting to slip down the spiral. I can't go for a walk without music or a podcast. I can't sit and wait without doing something on my phone, and I certainly can't have some thinking about what I want to work towards in the future. It feels like I have not actually solved the problem of my low self-image, but instead learned how to avoid the consequences of it. And perhaps equally unhelpful, learned how not to show what I think of myself to the outside world, as my friends and family all tell me I seem happier than before therapy. But why would I want to tell them that I feel worthless? It makes them worried, and I'm not worth being that kind of emotional burden. Yes, I'm aware of the distortion in that last sentence, but that is the persistent reasoning that is stuck in my head. So where do I go from here? Thanks, Matthias Vanderbrandt. P.S. I smile every time Jim has fun with my last name. Good, because I'm going to keep doing that. This is a good question.
Is this not just absolutely normal? Does everyone not just do this?
Yeah, go ahead. Get on the couch, Jacob.
This just feels like what I do in my absolute daily life.
Just constantly distract yourself.
Yeah.
From the perilous existential
But
dread
it's not
of
even
thoughts?
that. But it's like my brain will do things. It'll be like, oh, that's my brain doing something crazy, or that's like the years of drugs and booze,
Yes.
or just the regular craziness that I have,
Or the ones you're on right now.
Right.
Just past tense.
and yeah, I mean, and like every now and then something will kind of click in my head where I go like, oh, there's this, and then the other part of my head will kind of click back and go, no, that's just this thing. Don't worry about that. That's not a real thing. Like I'm constantly just kind of talking to myself in that regard, where it is just here's a thing that has popped up. Oh, I don't need to bother anybody else with that.
Interesting.
That's just this thing.
Okay.
That's fine.
I think to some extent that's very relatable, right? I think
Yeah.
all humans can probably relate to this idea of like, well, let me keep some thoughts to myself. I don't necessarily need to take them seriously.
I mean, we're certainly talking order of magnitude,
Of course.
mattering a lot here.
But some of it's relatable.
Yeah.
So I think I hear you like humanizing what Matthias is saying and saying, hey, man, I relate to this a little bit.
Certainly.
But certainly this is tough where people are having like these negative self-hatred spirals. And the only relief they've been able to find from that so far is the distraction techniques and the grounding techniques, which is good. I'm like glad that's working, but I can appreciate, Nick, what Matthias seems to be saying about like, is this just a hole in the dike? Like, am I like just plugging this? Am I not dealing with the deeper problem? I like how we're all just pausing to stare at Jacob.
What?
Jacob, I got a
You think I'm gonna make a
referral for
joke
you.
about
I was gonna.
Okay.
Okay, but I need
Look at him way up there on that high road. I can barely see him.
I need a little synopsis here because
They hate when you put holes in
let me paraphrase this and tell me if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah.
Essentially, what Matthias is saying, I start down this spiral. I recognize the automatic thought right away.
Mm-hmm.
I figure that out, move that off to the side. Still doesn't change anything. I just don't go down that road, but I still have the main issue of the low self-esteem.
Yeah. So Matthias is saying that he has become dependent on distraction techniques. I cannot be alone with my thoughts. Have to listen to music, have to listen to a podcast. If I end up with a blank space, my brain floods that space with self-hate talk. And I'm aware that's a cognitive distortion, and I've learned the right ways to describe that and self-recognize, but I keep getting stuck because I always spiral. And the only solution I have is distracting. And that is difficult to always use.
Oh, I haven't recommended meditation in a while.
Yeah. I mean, that may be. And if my guess is, if he were to try that, he's going to run into the same problem that most people run into with meditation, which is just
turn Buddhist.
They have that automatic thought, like you can't stop your brain from having these thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
Emptying
So
my
like,
thoughts is dangerous.
Quiet your mind.
Clear your mind.
Yeah, and so you try to do that, and then you start thinking about something like, God damn it!
Oh, that's not the
then I
kind of
keep
meditation.
going back into it.
The clear your mind thing is only one branch of meditation. Like the type that I do often is like the any thought that does come floating in. You don't get rid of it. You focus on it.
Mindfulness.
Yes, you explore
That is mindfulness.
that.
And this was my point, because this is
You explore it intellectually, not emotionally.
And this is the major
At least for me.
hang up. The major hang up that people have with meditation when they try it is when that thought comes into their head, then they automatically react to it.
They're fighting it.
Yeah, and so when you fight it, when you react to it, then all you're really doing is you're just compounding it, because now it's not just that I have this thought. You've got the weight of the thought, and then on top of that, you have the feeling of guilt and frustration. So you've just even made it worse.
Yeah.
So the trick is non-judgmental awareness.
Right.
Like that
Very
is the
zen.
hardest part. Yeah, so it's just
I'm
to
probably
be able
using
to,
the word Zen wrong, but cut me a
Leaning on it. I like
no
it.
one in
Right.
this podcast is going to know.
Nope.
So like, yeah, I mean, being able to just have that thought and then just like, okay, had that thought. And just to be completely
I'm not the thought police.
non-judgmental.
We're not judging the thought. It's just, here's an interesting thought.
That's a thought.
Let's examine this thought.
Yep.
Let's look at it. Let's dissect this thought. Let's have a look at it and see like where might this thought be coming from? Is this coming from a rational place? Is this coming from an irrational place? and you can go down that road and have a look at it.
And I think the really powerful thing with that is that once you kind of start to do that, then you recognize that thoughts aren't as powerful as you once thought they were. Because like if you have a thought of like, oh, I hate myself, man, that feels very powerful.
Yeah.
And that is very scary, and not to say that it's not, I don't want to diminish that in any way. But when you get to that point of non-judgmental awareness, you have that thought, okay, interesting. And then you realize that like, oh, it is just a thought and I am okay.
An interesting thing happened to me when I first started doing kind of the mindfulness meditation stuff. And that was, I started looking at my brain more as just another part of my body and not this super special part of my body necessarily.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's like, oh yeah, like my right thumb, I can pop my right thumb out of socket just at will. It's such a weird thing that my body can do. And like, yeah, my brain does weird things too.
Right. And it's not me.
Different parts of my brain or different parts of my body just do weird things sometimes. And my brain is no exception to that.
Right. I like that.
And that's fine.
Yeah. My thumb is not me.
That's
my
right.
thoughts are not me.
That's right.
They just happen.
And it's harder I think it's harder to differentiate like your thoughts, your brain from like your identity of self. But it is a thing. The line might be a little fuzzier than like your thumb.
Yeah.
But like, it's still same idea.
Yeah. Going off kind of what you were just describing, Jacob, I think that we do get caught up in when it comes to mental health and thinking that it's weird. So like you said, that's weird. My thumb does that, but it's just part of me.
Right.
So my brain does like weird things. Even just using the term weird implies that we're diverting from something normal. And a lot of times when I hear people talk about like destigmatizing mental health, I don't know if we really understand what that means. And what it really means is actually normalizing that people are all just different, and like the way your brain functions on a everyday basis, and you're like, wow, isn't this normal, or like part of this? Maybe not to that extent, but aren't some of these actions normal? And
it's like an ice cream social a couple of months ago. Somebody emailed in and just talked about how they are not able to picture things in their brain.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that.
And so like we sat on that for like 2 months.
Oh my
People
gosh.
just sending in different messages about that and everything.
Yes.
But that was news to me. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, not everyone can just picture an image in their head.
Totally crazy.
Like, oh, that's okay, weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be very odd when you hear that somebody else can't do something that you thought everyone could.
Right.
But like the
I
normal.
can do a handstand. No, I can't.
How much money can we pay to? How much?
What is the Patreon level that I have
I know.
to do
I was
this
like,
live?
I want to do that right now.
There is no
Shows
money.
off. Jim's doing a fucking handstand.
But yeah, the normalization of that or not. And I think sometimes what exacerbates our moments of spiraling, whether it's anxiety or depression or these negative the negative self-talk that you're doing, the negative self-image.
Right.
Sometimes what can like make that worse is the idea that we are worse off than other people around us.
Right.
Look how like, why can't I control my thoughts? Why is my body shaking because I'm in a slight manic state? Why am I just the worst at my job? And it's like those thoughts are coming from a place of comparison instead of almost sort of what Jacob was saying, like embracing or accepting that that's just my brain.
Yeah,
right.
And maybe it is a little bit tougher, but other people deal with difficult things that they can't really help or control that
Of
are
course.
typically like physical ailments or things like
Right.
that. And we don't say, gosh, why can't you get up and walk if you're paralyzed? Like,
Well, and this kind of goes back to
Tell your brain to talk to your legs.
yeah, it's
Well,
that easy.
when
Just do it.
Matthias talks about kind of this default posture of sort of self-criticism and feeling worthless, that's a really difficult place, I think, because it's almost like treading water in the ocean. Like if you do not actively resist, you will slide under the depths, right? And that's what some people are dealing with this kind of like negative self-image power is like, if I do not actively resist this or distract myself from this, my default mental posture is suffering and self-criticism and hatred. But it goes back to what you were saying, Whitney. Like, okay, if you find yourself doing that, one thing you have to be especially weary of is, are you being self-critical about things that you're like, denormalizing, right? That you're looking at yourself and saying, oh, I'm strange, I'm atypical. There's something about my face I don't like, something about my hair I don't like, something about the way I talk I don't like, other people don't, I don't have any value in other people's lives. And like the way you're strangifying yourself is really just not true, right? Whereas if you saw yourself as typical and, you know, a valued member of your family and friends and pretty much a typical member of your community, and you don't stand out in these unusual ways, even with these, you know, unique mental health challenges, normalizing yourself in that way, I think begins to address some of the buoyancy that's required to kind of keep your head above the waves when you have this like default posture of falling underneath them. I mean, Matthias, one thing I really like about this is, yes, you've mastered the ability to distract yourself, to keep yourself away from this. What's interesting, of course, is sometimes the solution isn't necessarily worse than the cure, but it becomes its own new problem. And we see this in mental health. Yeah. We've had people that have to learn thought-stopping techniques, you know, like slapping themselves with a rubber band or using cold water on the face or biting their tongue. And at the time, that is a relief for them because they are escaping something that is much worse than the pain of the sting of that rubber band or biting their lip or whatever they're doing. But over time becomes a secondary problem where now the escapism of using that technique is creating its own burden, right? I constantly have to be listening to podcasts. I constantly have to be listening to music. I cannot be left to my own thoughts. And now this is a new problem that I have to graduate from this first level technique that I learned. I need to get further.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, Matthias, you're using cognitive behavioral therapy. You're analyzing the thoughts as they come in. You are self-aware that these are distortions. These are not accurate. These are not, you know, the opinions of anybody else.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, I love that you're able to self-dialogue about that and you're able to apply that self-criticism, critical thought, rational thought. I think all of this is correct, but I appreciate what your letter's about, that there's a collision now between the coping strategies that you have used and the default sinking beneath the waves of self-criticism that will always happen. And so it is a really tough thing. And I wish there was like one weird trick that you could use. I mean, I think that everybody's got a piece of the puzzle that they're offering to you. Jacob's point about mindfulness, accepting the thoughts without believing the thoughts, radical acceptance. Here they are. I feel the presence of self-criticism. I feel the presence of self-doubt. I feel the presence of worthlessness. I see that. I analyze that thought. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to respond to it. Going to allow it to pass beyond me.
It's a part of me, but it isn't me.
Exactly. It exists. It coexists with me. It's an unfortunate reality, but it exists here.
I get to sound real hippie as soon as I start talking about meditation.
It was very...
I was about to say medication. That's a different thing.
That's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Not as hippie.
I do like the idea, too, of like saying that it's a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
I know. That's
it's not
really
me,
cool.
it's a part of me, but also just the idea and the understanding that that doesn't mean that you have to like it.
Of course.
Right.
You know, that it is fine.
Yeah, I got about 15 pounds that are a part of me that isn't me too. I don't have to like it.
I mean, there's things about me that I don't like.
Me too.
But I've just learned to...
Right.
Oh, sorry, go
Not
on.
me.
I got
that
ahead
I've
of
just
you on that.
that I've just learned to accept the sound of my voice.
Yeah.
I fucking hate the way I sound.
Why are we doing
I
a
don't like the
podcast?
way I talk. Well, but that's why I'm bringing it up. That's the irony in this.
Oh, wait, Whitney.
Is that-
Hit me.
I don't like my voice. I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way I talk. There's a lot of things that I just really don't like.
Right.
And I host a podcast.
Right. It's hard to go back and listen to it.
And I do.
I like your voice,
And I
though.
do. I do all the time.
Right.
Mainly to listen for mistakes.
Don't have to listen very long.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. But it's one of those things where it's like it is a part of me.
Right.
I have accepted it. I don't like it,
Right.
but I've embraced it. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a shitty sounding voice, but it's my voice.
Yeah. It's
You know,
distinct.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
having somebody on your team that you don't like. You're like, yeah, he's an asshole, but he's our
my
asshole.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you know,
Yeah, he's on this crew. He's
Yeah.
a member of this squad.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like
So
that.
I mean, it's kind of that interesting thing. Now, because you've worked in you've used a lot of CBT addiction. It's very common.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, as you have used it over the years, that you've become really good at identifying your own cognitive distortions?
Oh, well, that's also my whole life, right? Is like dealing with my own neuroses. Like,
Yeah.
I really
I mean,
feel
did you
for
go into
Matthias.
this profession for any other reason?
No, that
than
was
just
100% it.
self-diagnosed.
No, that was all it was.
Yeah.
I just kept getting degrees, but the whole point was to treat myself and save
Right.
money. It
Oh,
did not
wow.
save money. This was way more
Turned out to be
expensive.
very expensive.
I should have just seen a therapist.
No, but like it's interesting though, because like as I got into doing substance abuse counseling and over the years, I've really started to lean more and more and more on CBT.
Right.
And as I did, then I started noticing my own cognitive distortions, and it was so frustrating because it's like I'm reacting to something, I notice it, and I'm like, God damn it. Almost as in like, well, I can't use that anymore. And it was frustrating because it's like, well, I'm still left with the problem.
Okay.
Like I avoided myself making it worse.
Yeah. But it's still there.
But I'm still frustrated.
Yeah.
And
then it almost gets more frustrating because you're like, I'm aware now. Why can't I figure out how to just fix it?
Right.
Yeah.
Or stop it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can totally relate to that, Matthias.
Yeah. And Matthias, I think that it's something, obviously, your experience is intense, and I don't want to take away from it. While also, I do want to normalize to some extent how common it is that people really just deep down, hand on a Bible, hand on a lie detector, their truth is that they really do not see their own value. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're correct in assessing that is a lie, that is a cognitive distortion, that is not true, that perspective is completely inaccurate. And it's only by questioning that and right-sizing it and using the feedback we get from other eyeballs and other brains that we learn to distrust what our brain, which is not us, as Jacob said, but just a part of us, is telling us. So I appreciate that your default posture is almost always going to be sinking beneath the waves. I appreciate that you have to kick hard to keep your head above the surface. It is a very difficult thing, my friend, and I'm glad that you do that work. I'm glad that you confide in your therapist. I'm glad that you have found things that are successful for you. And I can also appreciate how the secondary problem of now the coping skills that I use are constant, and I wish that the underlying problem would stop so that I didn't always have to burst into these skills because I can't be alone with my own thoughts. That is tricky, and I wish I had one weird trick for that. I think that at some point, as you are practicing, we learn to dialogue with those thoughts and not just distract ourselves from them, which is that deeper dive into cognitive behavioral therapy, learning how to hit pause. If you want to go through our Patreon, I know you're a patron, and go back and find the pause series that I did. It's a 2-part series that talks about how to apply cognitive behavioral therapy to particular sets of thoughts. And, that's what's really helped me. Whenever I find myself in a spiral, I dialogue with myself about the cognitive distortion I think I'm seeing. I talk myself through it and right-size it using the techniques of CBT. And that gives me something to do productively with those thoughts, but they still occur. And I wish that was the case that they just didn't occur. Mm-hmm. Sometimes medicine helps with that. But
yeah. I wonder too, you mentioned that you've been to a therapist for over 5 years. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you're still seeing them. But hearing you say you kind of hide maybe some of the things you don't want to share with your family who say things have been so great since you've been to therapy, just make sure you're not hiding that from your therapist. Yeah. I think that can be difficult too. You've seen someone for a while, and I do wonder sometimes how many of my clients are just trying to make me happy. You know what I mean? Because they've been seeing you and they know you're working hard with them, and it's like, oh, look, I'm doing so great.
I don't want you to be disappointed in me. So we're here for this.
Yeah, it might be cliche like we always say, but definitely kind of mention where you're at with your therapist, because especially if they've been working on this with you, they may not realize that you're in a state of wanting to expand further, or that you need to grow.
Yeah. But that's a real sticking point some people hit. But Matthias, thank you. And thank you for being a friend of the show for so long and continuing to support us. I'm glad that you've been able to spend the last 3 seasons with us. And I hope that you'll go back and enjoy the other 4 seasons, I think.
How long is the season?
It's 52 episodes.
Interesting.
Approximately. So.
We do 1 episode a week, right?
Yeah, just 1 a week. Okay. Yeah, that's how that works.
Just doing some math.
We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about feeling invisible and left out. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Mason Miller, Tess Miller, Byler T, Paris, Team Monaco, Oscar Swanros, and Hannah Marie. And if you would like to sponsor a show, become our therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy.
Okay, no buzzing this trivia. Let's hear the.
Mel B.
Okay. You want all multiple choice?
I want all the multiple choices.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
I agree with that until I know it.
Okay.
And then I'll buzz it in.
Don't answer his buzz. Okay, Nick?
Okay, all right.
Buzz.
Where?
Jacob,
The UK.
Final answer.
where did the Spice Girls perform their first live full concert?
Buzz, London.
Okay, Jim's out. Our choices are...
Oh shit, there's multiple choice. God
Yeah.
damn it.
We just said that. We literally just said that.
It's one of those weird things his brain does.
A, Istanbul. B, London. C, New York. D, Paris.
Do I get extra points if it ends up being London?
No.
No.
So Jim's on London. What was it? It was Paris, London,
Istanbul or New York.
Their first full concert. What was it?
First live full concert.
Full. I mean, London seems like the easy answer, but I'm gonna say Paris to be different.
I'm gonna guess New York.
It is Istanbul.
Oh
None of
man!
us.
None of you. The tour was set up by Pepsi, and according to the BBC, Pepsi, because Pepsi insisted on the launching of the concert in a country where Pepsi outsold Coke.
Oh,
So it was
That
in
was the
Istanbul.
only one they could find.
that was it.
Yep, that was it.
Definitely not the U.S.
Thankfully, it was in Turkey.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? Could have been someplace else. What day was Spice World, the movie, released in the UK in 1998?
Thursday.
Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Okay, Jim. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. How long of a time period is that in a single year?
It's like a month? Is that like a month? That's like a month.
I believe it's 8 days.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow. This
Boxing
is-
Day is December 26th.
Yeah, the day
Yes.
after Christmas.
I'll bet you it's Boxing Day. Final answer.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna pick.
Of course, because it's the
I'll-
right
I'll
one.
go Christmas Day.
I'm gonna go Boxing Day too.
Boxing Day.
Okay.
There you go.
That's such a
I just
English
recently
thing.
watched Spice World for the first time.
Really?
I've not seen it.
It is a better movie than it should be.
Okay.
It's genuinely a pretty good movie. It's got like a good plot to it and it's funny. Yeah.
I hadn't watched it since I was a kid, but I did recently, like in the last few months, watch somebody reacting to it, on YouTube, and that was enjoyable.
I mean, I'm not saying everybody should drop what they're doing and
No.
go watch Spice World, but it is a much better movie than it has any right to be.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like a
it out.
good cast.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like major celebrities in
Like
that
John
movie.
Travolta.
Yeah,
and,
it honestly
Forrest
is-
Whitaker.
It's Donald
like
Trump's
that.
in it.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie.
Oh, we got Jim's attention.
Yeah.
Jim's not on his
So-
phone
They're
anymore.
mining gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're aliens that are
Yep.
weirdly tall.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's the only real difference. They have facial hair.
They have
Yeah.
dreadlocks.
Regular people have dreadlocks.
It's like
Joe.
you've not even seen it. And they have long tongues. Well, one of them does.
You're just describing Gene Simmons.
All
I
right.
knew it.
Feeling invisible and left out from Anonymous. Anyway, as we wrap up the show, we just want to remind you can go to patreon.com/therapy.
Well, Nick, what does that first line
That took me a
say?
second.
Thanks. Hello, wise people. And Jim.
Well played.
Thanks.
I wasn't saying well played.
Come
to
on,
you.
Jim. We're in a hurry.
Trying.
Let's go.
I'm trying.
We're on the clock.
Just start reading it. I'm coughing my brains out. All right. I'm a 39-year-old man and have recently been discovering something about myself. I've realized that I perceive myself as someone no one really notices or remembers, that I'm sort of an afterthought at best to people. I'm very active in the Scoop community and still feel like no one there knows who I am. Like, if I ever could afford to go to Scoop Fest, no one would know who I am. Another thing that's happened recently...
That doesn't matter. Come to Scoop Fest.
You should still come if you can
Yeah.
afford it. Another thing that's happened recently
No,
is
just get the money together. Everybody's cool. You'll be friends with everybody.
there you go.
It's
It'll
awesome.
all work out.
Yeah.
Another thing that's happened recently is a good friend of mine, best man in my wedding, just turned 40. I was really looking forward to celebrating it with him, especially since I had to miss his 30th birthday because I worked in crappy retail and got stuck working back-to-back doubles that weekend. This year, I asked him a week before what his plans were. He said that him and his girlfriend were going to do something. Fine, no big deal to me. But the day after his birthday, my wife sees a Facebook post from his girlfriend with a few people hanging out at a bar celebrating his birthday. What made me feel off about it was that he, the birthday boy, was not tagged in the post, but everybody else was. I felt like I was rejected from my own best friend's birthday. I reached out to him and got the response that his girlfriend did it as a surprise and only invited people that lived in the city and not the suburbs because she didn't think that we'd travel. He assured me that was all. No matter how much he says it, I still feel like I'm an afterthought. How do I get over this? Honestly, I honestly know it's not true, that people know me, they don't forget about me, but I just can't get my brain to see that. Thanks, Anonymous.
It's 2 questions in a row about just
Low
negative
self-esteem,
Yeah.
self-doubt. Yeah.
Way to start the new year. You
I mean,
said
honestly,
it's
if
gonna
you're
be
able
pretty
to come
dark.
to Scoop Fest,
Yeah.
you'll discover a lot of the lie in that.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately.
That's very true.
You'll discover people that do know you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll be proven this lie that's happening in your head will be proven wrong the first
Easily.
day.
Yeah. But what a relatable thing. I think
Certainly.
everybody relates to this. But, to hear the author talk about, like, I just feel inconsequential, and I feel like, yeah, people are pleasant to me and they like me, but I'm forgettable. I'm not noteworthy. I don't stand out. I'm not memorable. I'm not the person you remember to invite, And so, like, then I start to just feel like I'm in the background. I'm just, non-playable character. And, like, that's tough.
I think this has gotten to be a bigger deal as social media has become a bigger thing. Because before in the past, like if my friends went someplace without me, I didn't know
You
about
didn't even
it.
know.
You know?
You're just like, we're best friends.
Yeah,
still.
so I mean, like our human behavior never really changed. We just became more aware of what everybody else was doing.
That's a
know.
good point.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so weird.
This is one of the reasons that no one regrets getting off of social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
true.
definitely, I think you're right, Nick. It gives you the ability to feel more and more like you are the background, because you're not in people's stories, because you're seeing other people are doing things. And I think it's interesting, too, because I think about, like, chat communities like Discord, where you're talking with groups of people, like the Scoops or whatever. And I could see where a person might feel like I'm in the conversations, I lurk, and then I chirp in occasionally, and I have my thoughts, but then maybe I'm not upfront, active, look at me, and then I don't feel like I am memorable and easily forgotten, which is a really challenging feeling to have.
I always used to kind of feel that way.
Well, you do lurk in all the Scoop communities.
Yeah. So my behavior didn't change. I've come to accept it. Honestly,
You're just okay with
that's
it.
really, that's kind of what it is. Because like, I always got annoyed in like school growing up or like activities with friends and things like that when people would, especially like early on in college, like people would go and do things and I never, got invited. I was always there, but I never really got invited to go do things. And then other people did, and or they got more attention and, people would talk to them and spend time with them. And then I kind of realized well, yeah, but I'm not doing anything to facilitate that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm not getting involved. Like I'm not going over there and starting a conversation. I'm not, engaging with people and all that. And so I did start to open up a little bit more, but more to the point, what I really started to do is I kind of accepted it.
Right.
Yeah.
As it's just like, okay, well, to get this, I have to do this.
Right.
And so if I'm not willing to do that, then I shouldn't expect the thing,
I see what you mean.
And so it's just, it was kind of more of an acceptance thing.
Would it be harder to accept though if it was like a friend?
Oh,
that
for sure,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? That's like because my initial thought was the same. There's a group of people that exist, whether it's like coworkers, and they're all kind of hanging out, and they're like, you should too, but then you realize they've been hanging out and you weren't invited or something, and it hurts your feelings. But then I'll just think, okay, well, we're not going to be good friends then, or unless I want
fuck
to,
them.
unless I want to facilitate that, which I know is something
Call
Jacob
the Chili's and get their
would have
cars
said.
towed.
Are we going to Chili's after on Jacob? Or no, Applebee's on Jacob's gift card?
I forgot about
still
that.
have
I still got my
my
Apple.
Applebee's
I
gift
still have
Use your
mine
gift
too.
card yet?
Not yet.
I mean, I'm not going. I don't have a gift card.
I almost bought one for you today just to be like, let's go, guys.
I still wouldn't have gone.
I know you wouldn't. That's why I didn't buy it. I was like, he's going to be like, fuck that.
You might as well just lit some money on fire. I won't go to
totally
Applebee's for free. But hanging out with people and friends doing things together, and you feel like you're not a part of it.
Yeah,
and you feel like you could be a part of it if you took a little more initiative.
You could initiate. Like I could reach out to those people, and they may say like, okay, yeah, let's all hang out. But then I thought, man, what if that was a really good friend of yours? It's not just a fringe person or a newer person. It's like
best man in my wedding.
How do you navigate that? That's hard.
Your dad?
No. Well, yes, but the writer's story was about the best man at his wedding.
Specifically.
But
okay.
Good memory, though. My dad
I
was the
like,
best
was
man at
that
my
really
wedding.
his best man?
Yeah. That's
I never
wow.
heard him talk about his
I think
dad.
I don't listen to you. I
No,
listen.
you really don't. We've also literally played games in which we have to remember facts about each other, and you have gotten obliterated because you do not know anything about me.
Didn't ask the
Jim,
right
real quick.
questions. Yeah.
Jim, real quick. What's the name of the woman who is Sporty Spice in the Spice Girls?
Mel B.
Incorrect.
Damn it.
Moving
you guys
on.
said that like a lot of times, and that didn't even turn out to be the one.
Nope.
Don't know. So another thing about this that I think is interesting, because I think that there's another way to look at some of what you're describing. And I don't want to subtract from your experience of it, but I just want to comment because I do think this is valid. So like for me, I don't think I've ever been accused of being a person who blends into the background. I'm the obnoxious person that feels like he has to fucking talk everywhere I go. And the downside of
checks
that,
out.
friend, is that I remember growing up in high school and college, my very good friend, it was probably my best friend at the time, Eddie. Eddie is very chill, very background, quiet guy, speaks when spoken to, gets along with everybody. And I was like the extrovert, like, look at me. And there was a bunch of times that I remember he got invited to shit and I was not. And I'd check with him later, be like, hey man, what's up with that group? Like, I thought we were all friends. And he'd be like, yeah, I asked them like why they didn't, invite you. Or I'd be like, oh, do you want me to bring Jimmy? Be like, no, just you, Ed. And so, and I was like, wow, that's pretty fucked up that you went without me. And he'd be like, well, listen, man, I asked them about it. And they said like, you're a vibe, like you're a mood. And like, I'm not. Like, I just fit whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And when you show up, it's a different thing now. Whatever was happening, that better mesh with you. Otherwise, you're going to bring a new mood to the room. And I was like, okay, that's true. But then I really became envious of him. So I was like, damn it, that's so cool that like you mix everywhere. Like you're always gentle. You're always easy. You can fit in any group. You do not bother the vibe of the group. You always mesh. That's pretty cool. And so in some ways, I hear the writer talking about this background, phenomenon that they feel they have. And in some ways, I'm envious of that because I feel like, dude, that's so cool. Like, you're like a stem cell for any group. Like, you can just merge into it and become part of it because you are, in your perception at least, background. And in some ways, man, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, there's places that I would get invited to and places that maybe I wouldn't. Or, like I could see that from your example. Like, if I'm going to a library, I'm probably not going to invite Jim.
No,
because he can't read.
I can't read.
Yeah.
Because the whole illiteracy thing, I confided in you this morning. I'm really glad you brought that up on the podcast.
I told you that in
Feels like
confidence.
that, you could have maybe used any other example, but that was cool that that's the one you reached for. That's
What was
fine.
on his mind?
Yeah, it's fresh.
What I do like is kind of what Jim just touched on, though, was that you can kind of confront your friend about it if you are as close with him as it sounds like you are. Also, if you wanted to celebrate his birthday with him and he said, oh, I'm just doing this with my girlfriend, like, okay, when are you free? I still want to go out with you for your 40th, even if it's not on that same day. And see what he says. If he's like, yeah, man, let's go out. It might be a vibe thing. Like, and maybe it's true. The wife was like, or girlfriend, girlfriend was like, oh, I didn't think to invite people. That's hard as the partner. You're like, who all do I invite? I'm trying to think of.
He didn't have the clearance check on this. She didn't tell him. And I get it where she's like, I just invited people in the city because it's less stress on those people. They'll guaranteed get there. I can pick a venue for my guaranteed seats.
Yeah.
It's less hard.
And I know they mentioned he wasn't tagged. And this is where the social media part comes in. Mentioned.
You start digging into that shit. You read into
gosh,
shit.
I know it's like a mind fuck because they probably didn't tag him because they didn't want it to be something that's like, let's rub it in everyone's face that didn't go.
Blow up his internet. And
you
be like,
know,
he was
or
there.
like, what, you were there? So it's not
Or
necessarily.
they just didn't think to.
Yeah.
It could be even more. It could be
Depends
simpler
on where it
than
was
that.
posted. Was it on
Well,
the
and
girlfriend's?
I think the girlfriend would tag all the friends as the nod, as the thank you for making it. You know, oh, we
Sure.
threw this birthday party for Jim. Nick showed up. Hey, you know, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Jake. You know, like quick tags to you to say, I acknowledge that you came. Here's a photo of you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
that's true.
coming.
But you guys talk all the time about like don't do the mind reading thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same with social media.
Yeah.
As soon as you start trying to guess what people mean by what they do on social media, all you're doing is trying to read people's minds.
It's maddening watching
Yeah.
people try and do that.
You
I'm
can't
like,
do it.
no, stop.
Yeah,
Like,
it doesn't matter. Like you can't determine what people are doing. You can't determine what their life is like. You can't determine what their mindset is. You can't determine anything about someone
Right.
based on the things that they willingly put up to share on an international platform.
Right.
Because
Especially-
they're putting up what they think is the picture that they want to present, and they're wrong about that too. By the way,
Right.
Social media is for
terrible
mental health.
place.
I believe it's just bad.
It is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
horrible. But,
Yeah.
you know, this is really relatable, writer. I think a lot of people feel that they're sort of not the main character and they're just sort of in the background and they're easily forgotten. So in that sense, I just think it's something that a lot of people relate to you on.
Yeah.
But boy, do I think that those people, when I think of that group of person who's just easy and always like comfortable in any environment, I don't
Gets
hear the
them
word.
choked up.
Yeah, it gets me choked up. I don't hear the word background as a bad thing. Like I hear the word background as you can just count on a group of people to just fit in everywhere. So I don't know, but I mean, you ask like, how can I make myself not get stuck on this thought? How do I get over this? Even though I know it's not true, but I can't get my brain to see that I do matter. And, you know, I would just come back to those self-talk skills where we kind of use the application of cognitive behavioral therapy that asks you to think carefully. If you had a best friend going through that exact same situation, what would you honestly tell them as in a form of advice? If a buddy called you and said, my gosh, dude, you remember my buddy, you know, who was my best man at the wedding? Like, man, this just went down. Like, I just feel like a nothing. Like, why wouldn't this guy call me? This is the excuse I got. I called him. He kind of reinforced that excuse. What real practical soothing advice would you give your friend in that situation? And I think that we tend to give better advice than we can talk to ourselves with. And so that would be my advice for how you can convince your brain that this is not true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to add to that. I think I can envy or don't envy. I can relate to the feeling. I don't think you're wrong to have that feeling. I think that's common. That's incredibly common.
Yeah.
And as I said before, I think it's becoming more common
Yeah.
because we see it more often. We're more aware of things that we're not involved in than we ever have been. So I think, you know, maybe that would be my way of reframing that, is just to say that nothing has changed. You're just aware of things now, you know, and you know, I like Whitney's advice. You know, you see, you know, that you didn't get invited to this thing, reach out to your friend, say, hey, I still want to hang out with you. Let's go, let's schedule something. Let's go do something.
Keep
You
it
know?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, take initiative in any way that you can.
Yeah.
Well, great question, whoever you are. I hope that you're not invisible anymore. As we wrap up the show, we want to remind you that you can sign up at patreon.com/therapy. You can get the extended show ad-free a day earlier and enjoy the live chat Discord community, as well as our weekly deep dives, interviews, skill shares, research roundups, and rants. Thank you, by the way, to all the Patreon community that answered our end of the year survey. We sent out a big fat survey and just got a lot of feedback on things that we should be doing differently and things that we're doing right and things people want more of. One of the smartest
What were the
comments.
I was going to say, anything
Yeah.
stand out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I should send them the results because there was tons of data. There was-
Actually,
By them, do you mean us?
yeah, you too.
Yeah,
I
me
just
too,
didn't forward you the results,
No.
but no, there's a ton of like good feedback for each of you as well, like things they love that you do. So it was really, really good. One of the smartest pieces of advice was, "Hey, I'd probably become a TheraPartner if they had a cool intro." Or like cool like
Song?
language,
Oh.
like their producers. Like their producers get this cool like mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members. I was like, oh damn, that's really cool.
That is
so I
cool.
had
Oh, there you go.
ChatGPT write a whole intro for the TheraPartners.
oh, right.
Oh,
on.
nice.
Yeah, so that'll probably help bait
Oh,
some people
cool.
into this mess. But we do have some new TheraPals who's joined the TheraParty.
Just so FYI, this list goes back to anybody who joined in December because I couldn't remember the last date that we recorded.
Good enough.
And all of our episodes got messed up. So some of these names we may have already mentioned, but we got some new pals. Jeff Michaels, Wolfie05, Chris, and Robert Jordan.
And
Welcome.
new theropods, Jacob Billingsley.
Love that, Jacob.
Love Jacobs as a general rule.
And new Therodactyl, Silka Daniels.
Yeah.
And it's the first of the month.
Do I get to
for
read all these names?
Intents and purposes.
I'm feeling up to the challenge.
Oh, hell yeah. So here are all the theropods.
All that super long list at
We
the
have
bottom.
to do this. Yep.
Do I just
We
start
made a
whenever?
commitment.
Don't sound so mad about it, Jim.
Here we go.
We have to do the thing that we said we would
Whitney,
do.
are you going for it? Are you doing
Yeah.
the theropods?
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it.
This
It
will
was
be
so
fun.
fun last time trying to struggle through these names. Why is the first one hard?
This is great. No, just go ahead.
All right,
this is actually
theropods.
joyful for me.
New Stick, Robert Paulson, Polygon, Colin, Scoopstronaut, Richard Bruins, Linda Brandmere.
Yep.
Yay. Corey Owens, Joseph Grazio,
This is great. I'm really enjoying this.
Christine
If anyone's
Phillips,
not enjoying
Gavin
this, just fast
Bristow,
forward like 10 minutes.
No. You sit here and you listen to your
Carrie
name.
Terhark, Stacy
Yes.
Westerlin, Scooby Just, Kiwi Fruit Scoop, James K, Chelsea Saracen, Craig Little, Katie
Yes. Do it.
Chwilkowski,
Yes.
Don Doerr, Jim Hunter, Adam Brisbix, Brooks Lyle, Take It EV Podcast, Sustainable Transportation for All, ! Todd Canfield,
Punctuation.
Felicia Butler. They
Comma.
put it in there, so I'm going to read it. I didn't read the commas. You're right. Sorry, Jacob.
Semicolon.
Felicia Butler, colon. David Sorensen, Shayla Bullock, Scoopatron, Lauren Izzo, Stacy Coleman, Adam Petanuzzo,
Yes.
Petanuzzo, Mats Lengren.
Now you all know if you put punctuation in your name, Whitney will read it.
Get ready.
It's like Will Ferrell in Anchorman.
Jupiter Ascending, Ian Soto,
Jupiter
Jessica.
ascending?
I'm not-
Isn't that? Oh. Jessica Cyphers, That Josh Guy, Lee Popsicle, Dr. Scoop Little, oh, Mama Ninja Scoop, James Dawson, Colson Morrow, Sarah Olo, Grumpy Lake Mead Park Ranger, hey, Sam Buck, Karen McCulloch, Megan Smith, What Weekend, Some_Nobody, BP, Lila, Bigay, Do Crimes, Kelly Gagner, Nippy, Brian Emra, Drew Halige, Alec Lancaster, Matthew Johnson, A Literal Pickle, Matthias Vanderbrandt,
Nice.
as Jim says it, James Hubble, Max the Ginger Scoop, Ken Tinsley, Watergirl, Andres Saavedra Molina,
Nice.
Stacy, Protect and Scoop, Cody the DeLorean Guy, Ulti_Engie, Anonymous, Jim Mills, Smells Funny, Brady Mlekchik,
Yay.
Matt Kubik, Chad the Safety Lad, Walker Fluke, Julius Capel, Philip Guyton, Timistry, love that, Almost Dr. Nurse Joey, Duffy the Slowly Getting Their Therapist Bear, Christopher de Gyurtsy, Kierkegaard, Yervin Santon, Trisha Ortiz, Kirsten Johnson, Joel McMillan, Tiny Home Travelin', Chris and Alyssa, in parentheses, Scott A., Melissa L. Geyser, Chris Conway, Laura B., DJ Seward, Mississippi Hippie, love that, Patty Glad, Christopher Aguirre, Fifi, Eli, Heather W., Kyle, David Williams, Kate Palesi, Todd Vrooman, as Jim says, Anthony Camarata, Freya Lawson, Eric Dyer, Emma Kane, Susie Kathleen, Adam Warren, Jo Beth R. Bowers, Mark Orellana, Buddy Dobbins, Glitched Scoop, Shy Ruparel, Trontastic, Aleda Bala, Stephen Landon, Elena, Robert Cole, Kenneth Wong, John Finlayson, Tasha, Rachel Rakowski, Kay Pizzle Dizzle, Jeff Darnell, Silka Daniels, and Jacob Billingsley.
Nice. Well done. That's fun to listen to her pronunciation of those names.
We should play them side by side on Jim's and mine. See how different they are.
Yes. You're up. I'm going to do
Somebody
this.
else.
I was
has a
like,
thought.
I'm
All
not
right.
doing pterodactyls.
I have a whole thing for the partners.
Pterodactyls, thank you. Pterodactyls, thank you. Ice Blue Scoop, Brian Lehman, Scott Brady, Fred Bashara Jr., Andrea Anderson, Scoop Lindsay, Frozen Cusser, Lori Eltsroth, Robert Ward, Cy Shonigan,
Nice.
Okie Scoop, Dank Butter, Andrew Langmead, Lovely Spark, and TKO.
New intro for the Therapartners. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round, for in the shadows emerges a figure so enigmatic, so powerful, that the very cosmos whispers the tale of their greatness. Prepare yourselves for the cosmic force, the celestial enigma, the universally admired sensations who prowl in the darkness where mere mortals falter. This mysterious marvel stands as the beacon of awe and wonder. With every step, the ground trembles beneath their enigmatic prowess, and the stars themselves bow down in admiration. Who are these illustrious beings, draped in an aura of intrigue? Some say they hold the secrets of the universe within the palms of their hands. Legends speak of their wisdom echoing through the cosmos, guiding lost souls and inspiring the hearts of all who gaze upon their majestic presence. Behold, as the curtain of mystery is drawn back to reveal the silhouette of the one whose very name sends shivers down the spine. The mystical maestros are here to orchestrate a symphony of cosmic excellence. Brace yourselves for an odyssey of admiration, a journey through the enigmatic realms of the universally revered. As the mystic
Wow, this is
unfolds,
long.
let the power of the mystical maestros
Yeah, we're
captivate
not
your
doing this every
senses.
episode.
The Therapartners. I'm talking about Dirty B, Myra, and Pickett. And we also want to thank all those other chumps. Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Smitty Scoop, Ben Don, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Mrs. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop, Malia, Leon Kassab, Mason Miller, Richard Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley, Slap at Your Face, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, A Sunny Boy, Slurpy Kaye, motherfucker, Sandra McWaffle, Dan Martin, and Hannah Marie.
And if you'd like to this episode uncut and unedited
And why wouldn't you?
and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy. And thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we got for this week's session. Welcome to Season 7. We want to thank our landlords, the Perennial Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We do appreciate you. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share the episode with someone who needs it by opening the episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link that no longer exists. This description is outdated.
Aww.
Don't forget to tag us on the social media apps. It's at PodTherapyGuys on Instagram and Threads and Twitter, X, and /PodTherapy on Facebook.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? You can ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Whitney.
I'm Jim.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy New Year.